No country represents utopia as brilliantly and as clearly as the Communist China. The country started off as a hardcore communist nation under the leadership of Chairman Mao Zedong. Rich businessmen and landlords were killed and looted by the CCP because, well, they exploited the landless laborers. Yet, by the 1980s, the CCP realized that wealth needs to be generated to sustain a country of China's size. So, the past 4 decades have witnessed stunning growth in China. Yet, despite the communist pledge of equality, the ordinary Chinese citizens haven't reaped the benefits of prosperity. Chinese workers have to work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for 6 days a week, which is called the 996 in popular culture. While Chinese workers are made to work endlessly, it is the Chinese Communist Party officials who benefit out of corrupt practices and kickbacks on land sales fueled by tremendous economic growth. Now, the Chinese workers are growing aware of such exploitative practices and their protests are threatening to unseat Xi Jinping. Hi and welcome. This is TFI Global, the foreign affairs and geopolitical analysis arm of the TFI Media Group. I'm your host Siddharth, and in this video, I will tell you how Chinese corporate sector is now responding to Xi Jinping's brutal regulatory crackdowns. Let's begin. Xi Jinping, the brutal Chinese hunter, has been poaching Chinese corporate giants for the past 1 year. Alibaba, Tencent, and a number of Chinese edutech companies have faced the brunt of Xi's regulatory crackdowns. But it is the turn of the Chinese corporate sector to respond now. And they're responding by destroying Xi's image in China and instigating a virtual revolt against the Chinese president. How so, you may ask? Well, the Chinese corporate sector seems to be fueling widespread dissatisfaction against the Xi administration over the 996 work culture in the communist nation. Now, the 996 work culture involves working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for 6 days a week. The Chinese working class is growing furious with this exploitative work culture and is mounting pressure on Xi to relax the tough working conditions in the communist country. China has been witnessing protests against the 996 culture for quite some time now. Chinese youth even launched what came to be known as the Lying Flat movement. The movement did not involve any sloganeering or active protests. Rather, it meant lying down and doing absolutely nothing. You know, such protests can cripple the Chinese innovation and economy. Now, young Chinese workers have intensified their battle by launching a so-called Worker Lives Matter campaign. A group of private sector employees in China have launched an online campaign to gather their working hours in order to raise awareness against the exploitative work culture in the communist nation. Employees in industries like finance and technology are sharing their working hours as part of the online campaign in China against excessive work culture. As of Thursday, the spreadsheet had over 4,000 entries coming from within tech giants like Tencent, Alibaba, and ByteDance. Though it may seem as if China's private sector promotes the 996 culture for its own benefit, the fact remains that the Chinese Communist Party was the one that induced the corporate giants in the country to introduce the 996 culture. True, companies like Alibaba and JD.com celebrated the 996 work culture. However, they supported the 996 work culture only because introducing such a regime had become a badge of honor for many Chinese firms. It was a means of showing loyalty to the CCP's goals of pumping economic growth by exploiting the Chinese workforce. This was a part of CCP's strategy to put China in an advantageous position over the free world. If you think about it, it's kind of obvious that the 996 work culture is really a part of the CCP's disposition to treat Chinese workers as slaves. While the 996 regime represents a harsh work culture in Chinese corporate offices, things get far worse in Chinese factories where basic human rights are violated. The 996 work culture is actually becoming a very contentious issue in China now. Brutal and excessive work culture in China has even caused deaths. Yes, you heard that right. People are dying, and there is a growing disillusionment against the brutal work culture in Chinese social media. The online campaign against the Chinese work culture took the software collaboration site GitHub to declare, "We workers also need to live." But it is not just the Chinese workers who hate Xi Jinping. Even the private Chinese companies have started hating him. Over the past 1 year, Xi has made the life of Jack Ma's Alibaba and several other corporate giants difficult with antitrust probes and fines for monopolistic practices. In fact, due to Xi's vindictive actions, Jack Ma's net worth got reduced to half. Now, by instigating popular sentiment against the 996 culture, the Chinese corporate giants are putting Xi in a tight spot. After all, Xi is the Chinese president. And the Chinese workers blame him for their misery instead of blaming any of the famous CEOs or business leaders. Given a chance, Alibaba and other corporate giants would want to instigate a rebellion against Xi Jinping. Moreover, there is the Shanghai faction involved. Jack Ma and almost all other Chinese tech billionaires are closely connected to the Shanghai faction, which is a group of people considered close to former President Jiang Zemin. This faction supported Alibaba's rapid growth before Xi Jinping took charge of affairs. The Xi era has, however, been different. The problem for Ma and other successful Chinese tech entrepreneurs is that sitting Chinese president considers the Shanghai faction a political challenge, and many top officials purged by the Jinping administration have been Zemin supporters. The Shanghai faction, however, remains politically influential and also resourceful because of the widespread support that it enjoys from billionaire entrepreneurs. The Shanghai faction therefore wants to reassert its control in the CCP at Xi Jinping's expense, and it doesn't mind if a popular protest over the 996 culture leads to the CCP's supremo's downfall.